Once upon a time, there was an electrical contractor doing £700,000 in sales, but still losing 100 grand a year. In fact, he had to borrow money from his wife just to make payroll. 90 days later, £20,000 in profit, and he'd paid back his wife. So I'm going to show you the exact 5 things that were broken and the 3 things we fixed that made that happen. The third fix is the one that nobody talks about, and it's probably the biggest mistake most contractors make, so make sure you stay tuned for number 3. So this guy messaged me on LinkedIn, absolutely desperate. He was at his wit's end. He was ticking over with work, and he was getting all his work from word of mouth and some from some previous customers. But he wasn't just not making money, he was losing 100 grand a year. And the worst part, he didn't really know what was going on in his business. He had no idea why things were so bad. He had a useless accountant, the bookkeeping was a disaster, and he was one of those that waited till the end of the financial year for his accountant to tell him what happened 12 months earlier, whether he made any money or not, which is a bit backwards. By then, the money's already gone, and it's way too late to fix. Well, most of the time. We'll cover that in this video. So I'm going to walk you through the 5 problems that were killing him and his business and the 3 fixes that completely turned it around in just 90 days. That's 3 months. Because if you're running any kind of contracting or trades business, these strategies work for struggling companies, and they also work for profitable companies as well to take things to the next level. So, quick bit on me. I'm not a coach, I'm not a business coach, I'm a businessman. I buy businesses, I fix them, and I invest in them. I used to drive a taxi, so I'm living proof that anyone can learn this stuff. You just have to follow the process. My biggest payday was when I bought 6 hair salons, fixed them up, made them more valuable, and then sold them to a private investor. Since then, I've invested in over 20 companies, and I've been brought in to turn around about a dozen others. The systems I use are all the same systems that all professional investors use when they buy companies, big or small. So everything I'm about to show you isn't from a book. It's actually what works when you've got your own money on the line invested in a company and you want to improve it so you get a good return on your investment. Right, back to the electrical contractor that was hemorrhaging money. So when he reached out, I told him to send me everything. Bank statements, P&L, balance sheet, job sheets, everything. And it took me all of 5 minutes to see why he was losing money. Let's go to this side. My lovely handwriting. 5 big problems, and I bet at least 3 of them are ones every business owner has learned the hard way, including me. So problem 1, he had no way to forecast cash. He had no way to forecast his cash position, and he was checking his banking app 15 times, 20 times a day, every single day, in the hope there was more money landing in the bank account. He was always wondering if there was going to be enough in the bank to cover Friday's payroll, and that sneaky little Dropbox subscription that seems to increase every few months didn't take him into his overdraft. His wife completely stopped asking how the business was doing because she knew the answer just by looking at his face. He brought the business home with him every single night. In fact, let's just say that things at home weren't great, and the business and the poor performance of the business and the stress that comes with that played a huge, if not all part of that. So the problem is, cash and profit move differently. You can show a profit on paper and still run out of money because the timing doesn't add up. He was paying his staff weekly, paying suppliers on delivery, but waiting 60 to 90 days to get paid by his clients. So every time he won a big job, his cash got worse before it got better. And he couldn't see it coming because he had no cash management systems in place. The second problem he was facing was his bookkeeping was a complete mess. He had his personal spending mixed in with legitimate business expenses, invoices missing completely, but it was even worse than that, to be honest with you. Things were in the wrong categories, and he had duplicate lines on his P&L. And a good example of that is, I remember he had a line for fuel and he had a line for diesel. Exact same thing, but spread across 2 lines on his P&L. And things like that made his accounts a complete mess and hard to read. So great bookkeeping is a key pillar to getting any company organised and positioned for growth. And let's just say his was a complete opposite to that. It also didn't help that his accountant didn't really care. They just filed the year end when it was due and continued to invoice him every month regardless. When your books are wrong, every decision you make is based on bad information. So you think you're profitable when you're not, you think you've got cash when you don't. So having well kept and tidy books is a key pillar for any successful business. I can't stress that to you enough. Problem 3 was he had no pricing structure, and this one absolutely killed him. Most contractors put a markup on costs and think they're making a profit, but they don't include their overheads properly in the pricing. And all of that eats away at the margin and you're left with much, much less than expected. And this means less money in the bank, which again impacts the cash flow, so you're always chasing your tail. In fact, to show you how bad pricing was, we went through his last 20 completed jobs, and 14 of which made 5% or less profit. That's pre-tax. And the most worrying part of it all, he had no idea. He was just doing the work, invoicing, checking his bank account, see if he was being successful or not. Clearly not. Problem 4, he was paying everyone before he was getting paid. His payment terms were completely backwards. He'd win a job, buy all the materials up front, pay his lads weekly, and then wait for his clients to pay him 2 months later. It was a recipe for absolute disaster. Thank God he messaged me when he did, or who knows how much longer he'd have left in business, to be honest with you. This is typical of a lot of contracting companies I work with or mentor. And just by changing the payment structure of money in and money out, you could completely change the business's health just by doing this one thing alone. Understanding the impact of cash moving in and out of a business is something that should be taught when you set up a limited company, in my opinion, a bit like a driving theory test, if you like. I personally think it's that important. And next, problem 5, he was burning cash on leads that just didn't work. So before he contacted me, he paid a load of money to some trade guru, told him to spend thousands every month buying in leads, as contracting is just a sales game. And yes, that guru did have a bad suit and he did have shiny teeth. Anyway, I digress. Actually, I do see a lot of this, to be fair. People telling you just to get sales solve problems, but it doesn't solve the pricing, it doesn't solve the cash flow, it doesn't solve the bookkeeping, it doesn't solve the marketing costs. Usually those who give this type of advice are people who've never actually owned a business themselves, or at least a successful business, and come from more of a marketing background. If you don't price a job correctly and the payment terms are backwards, the more sales you get, it just compounds the problem even further. Also, he wasn't tracking the conversion rates. He had no idea which leads turned into jobs, just buying in the leads and hoping they'll convert. And the problem was, if 1 out of 10 did buy, then the profit from that one was wiped out by the other 9 leads he had to buy in, and he didn't win. So still simple stuff, but for some reason, a lot of people miss this. So that's why I'm covering it in this video. So those were the 5 problems. Maybe you recognized a couple in your own business, hopefully not all 5. So more importantly, here's what we did to fix it. First things first, we built a 90-day plan. We were focused on just 3 things: cash visibility, pricing, and marketing. So the 3 things: cash, pricing, marketing. It really is that simple. So fix 1, cash visibility. First thing we did was implement a 12-week cash flow forecast. We needed to see how much was going to be in the bank account and when, so we could plan around it. So we've got 3 columns: money coming in, money coming out, and the gap in between. And we list every invoice you know is landing and when, and list every payment going out and when, and look at where the holes are, see if there's any shortfall. Once he could see 3 weeks ahead instead of 3 hours behind where he was by using his business banking app, everything changed. He could actually see into the future to see how much money would be in his bank. because he could plan ahead and solve problems instead of always reacting to them, which is a very stressful way to operate a business. So we fixed his payment terms, 30% deposit on all new jobs, progress payments tied to milestones, no more paying everyone twice before getting paid yourself. And the big one, he had 50 grand sitting in unpaid invoices, which were over 100 days overdue. Now, most contractors avoid debt collection because they're worried about damaging relationships. But here's the thing. If someone owes you money for over 100 days, there's no relationship left to damage. So it's time to look after number one and no longer need your wife to cover payroll. So debt collection was the answer. We need to focus on the priorities, bringing in cash. So we brought in a debt collection firm. They worked on a no-win, no fee. If they recover nothing, you pay nothing. They recovered the money, they took a percentage. And they actually recovered all £50,000. And that 50,000 minus fees gave him the cash buffer he needed to stop panicking about payroll every week and actually focus on fixing everything else. So stop this video right now and open your invoicing system, whether it's manual or on your accounting software. Look at anything owed that's over 30 days past due date, add it all up. That's your money that's sitting in someone else's bank account, earning them interest while you're stressed about paying your bills. Try one more time to collect the cash yourself, and if they don't pay within 5 days, just outsource it to a collection agency. Fix 2, pricing. Sort out your pricing, guys. Most contractors put a markup on the cost and think they're making that markup in profit, but they don't include their overheads properly. That eats away and erodes at the margin you think you're making, but you're not making. So I worked with him to use our bespoke pricing formula. In essence, it's just a simple spreadsheet that ensures he covers everything in the pricing from materials to on-the-job parking. This meant moving forwards, every single job he quoted, he knew he was making money on it. Every single job. And that gives you great peace of mind. So, we're going to go this side now. My lovely handwriting. Mark up doesn't equal profit. Within a month, margins started to rise, and those that used to lose money were now profitable, or they dropped off and found some other mug to go and do loss-making work for them. So it's so important you get a proper system and formula to price jobs. Don't just guess or put a markup on your work and hope you make a profit. You need a repeatable formula for every job to get consistent profits. We have a really cool pricing spreadsheet we use with our portfolio companies and our mentees, and it guarantees profitability every single time, and it's so simple. So that's why the guys love it. And the fix 3 was marketing. So we stopped spending money he didn't have on lead gen that wasn't working. He was spending thousands every month on buying leads, no tracking, no idea what was converting or not. So we cut it all off, stopped it completely. And we actually built him a proper marketing system, one that's made my company probably close to 8 figures over the past few years. My LinkedIn blueprint. A simple yet ridiculously effective marketing system for B2B contractors who want to scale. So we created him a content plan to bring in organic customers, an outbound campaign to contact new ones. We restructured his branding, who he was targeting, the types of clients he didn't want to work with anymore. We audited his LinkedIn profile and really doubled down on Google My Business, which is hugely underrated when you know how to use it properly, by the way. We started telling people what he did, how it helped them, and where he did it. So we just went back to basics with the marketing, really, instead of just throwing money and hoping it worked. And with that LinkedIn blueprint, he generated tons of new leads super quickly, all of which could now be priced properly with our new pricing formula to guarantee they were profitable, and all with more favorable payment terms. And because they were new clients, we had a blank canvas. So when we're setting our terms, rather than trying to change our terms with existing clients and convince them, they just think it's our standard new terms. So just 90 days later, his pipeline was better than it ever been. Better quality work, better clients, and he wasn't hemorrhaging cash on ads anymore, which also really helped increase the margin. And on top of all that, we sorted out his bookkeeping. We got him a top quality bookkeeper who actually cared. Someone who made sure the numbers were accurate every week, put in the systems to keep them tidy moving forwards, because everything needs a system. And once the books were clean and we could trust the numbers, we started producing monthly management accounts for him, and these were done within 5 days of the month ending. So instead of this guy waiting 12 months to find out whether he'd made or lost money, he knew exactly what was happening every month while there was still time to do something about it. That way we could make changes that made a quick impact and prevent problems from compounding. Running out of room here. Clean books, reports allow you to make great decisions. He had a call with me once a week where we reviewed some key metrics to make sure the changes were actually working. We reviewed his cash position, his pricing, his marketing, how his books were looking, how he was spending his time, because he was wasting a lot of time on leads that didn't convert. And I'll tell you what a different man he was. He even looked a bit different. He looked younger. He had a bit more colour in his face. He didn't, for want of a better phrase, he didn't look depressed anymore. I genuinely thought he was about 10 years older than he actually was when we first met. But it was like watching Benjamin Button over those first few months, particularly over those first 90 days. And 90 days later, let me put this into perspective. He went for £100,000 loss on paper to £20,000 in profit. I was going to write on the whiteboard there, but I'm not going to because I've run out of room. But just process that for a minute. It's a 120% swing in profitability. Due to a combination of everything we've just discussed, that's 120% increase in profit in just 90 days. I think he won a big job through LinkedIn for a block of flats. I think it was 11 flats, and that really helped with those numbers, to be completely candid with you. It was a big job with great payment terms. But more importantly, he had systems. He could see what was happening. He knew which jobs made money. He knew what cash was coming in and going out. He had a marketing strategy that was working before his eyes. And the best thing, the first thing he did was pay his wife back the money he had to borrow from payroll those couple of times. So, guys, imagine that as a man, having to ask your missus to cover payroll for your business. That must hurt, right? But we got his self-respect back. He managed to pay her back. The business went from draining him financially and mentally to something that he actually understood now. He could price his own jobs, track his own cash flow, and generate his own leads. None of this is super complicated. It's just stuff nobody really teaches you when you start a contracting business. You learn how to do the trade work well on the tools, but nobody sits you down and shows you how to forecast cash flow, how to price your jobs properly with your overheads, or track what's actually working on a day-to-day basis. So it's not your fault because nobody ever taught you, but it is your responsibility to learn it, especially now you know how to from this video. So right, here's a rundown of exactly what you need to do. First, 12-week cash flow forecast, non-negotiable. Second, you need to sort out your pricing. Get a proper system and a proper formula. Make sure your overheads are included properly, not just materials and labour and slapping a markup on there. Third, fix your payment terms. Stop funding everybody else's business, and remember, money in quicker, money out slower. That's all cash flow is. Fourth, get your bookkeeping cleaned up properly. Put in rules and triggers so your books never get in a mess again, and you can make proper decisions off accurate data. Now, I know what you're thinking. I don't have time to figure all this out myself. I'm busy running a business. Well, it's your job as a business owner to learn all of this stuff, or you'll spend the rest of your life stressed and unhappy owning a business. It could take people years to learn this stuff, and there'll be a lot of trial and error along the way, but it's 100% worth it, guys. It really is. But if you did want to save yourself countless hours of working it all out yourself, that's exactly why I built the Profitable Contractor Blueprint. Every template, every formula, every system I use with this electrical contractor and all the other businesses I've invested in or mentored is all included in there. And as much as I love this guy, and I'm sure he'll agree with me in saying this, please don't be like the guy who inspired this video. and wait until you're in crisis mode to make a change. Please nip it in the bud and make these changes sooner rather than later. I see so many owners taking cash flow loans through expensive lenders like the iWalkers and the funding circles of the world just to make their payroll. And by that point, it's so hard to turn things around as the business now needs to fund those debt repayments along with all the other issues in the business as well. It's doable, but prevention's always better than cure. If you did want to get access to everything and work with me directly in your business, the link's in the description, no pressure. I'm a busy man. We could book in a call, do an audit of where you currently are and put a plan in place to fix or improve things, just to see what low-hanging fruit you're leaving on the table. But if you're not ready yet, at least do the 4 things I just told you and subscribe for more valuable videos like this. And I'll see you in the next one.